This community update was brought to you by U-Radio. The Manitoba government says its 2026 budget proves you can lower costs, rebuild healthcare, and still keep the books under control. Finance Minister Adrian Sala delivered the NDP government's third budget, outlining $27.3 billion in spending, with affordability, healthcare, and economic growth at its core.
Month after month, across the country, rising costs make it harder for the middle class to keep their heads above water. And for families living paycheck to paycheck, the fear of being underwater is constant.
But while the province says it's turning a corner, critics argue the budget doesn't move fast enough on climate action or housing. Affordability was the budget's central theme. Measures included reducing costs of gas, housing, and childcare, expanding tax credits, making public transit free for youth, and removing PST from grocery food. The government says these moves ease pressure on household budgets while keeping Manitoba fiscally stable.
As deficits grow across the country, we are budgeting responsibly with the lowest deficit to GDP anywhere in Canada. We are making steady progress on our path to balance at the end of our first term while we deliver on what matters most to Manitobans: good jobs, lower costs, and better health care.
Healthcare remains the government's flagship promise and one of the budget's biggest spending areas. New funding targets staffing shortages, emergency room wait times, hospital capacity, seniors care, rural doctor recruitment, cardiac care, and expanded women's health services.
In the last 2.5 years, we've hired 4,054 net new healthcare staff. We've added 384 fully staffed beds in our hospitals, and we've opened 145 beds for seniors in personal care homes with more hours of direct care.
One of the boldest claims from the minister was about family doctors and same-day care.
With 317 net new doctors, we've gone from the worst to the best in Canada when it comes to access to a family doctor, and we lead the country in access to same-day care.
The government says these investments and changes mark real progress, although they acknowledge the system is still recovering. Healthcare workers have welcomed many of these investments, but physicians concerned about the environment say the budget largely ignores a growing driver of poor health: climate change. Doctors with the Canadian Association of Physicians for the Environment say wildfires, extreme heat, and air pollution are already increasing hospital visits and chronic illness across Manitoba. Housing is another area where advocacy groups see intention but not urgency. The government frames housing as a health investment, backing new affordable units and expanded supports with the goal of ending chronic homelessness.
Ending chronic homelessness is the right thing to do, and it's an investment that will make our healthcare system stronger as more Manitobans find a path to stable, healthy lives.
However, members of the Right to Housing Coalition say the number of new units planned won't keep pace with rising demand, especially when many won't be deeply affordable social housing, warning homelessness could continue to grow despite government promises. Economically, the budget paints an optimistic picture. The province points to wages now growing faster than inflation, expanded childcare spaces, investments in skilled trade, Indigenous economic participation, and major infrastructure projects. One in particular that stands out is investments in the Port of Churchill. A $10 million investment through the Port of Churchill Plus Catalyst Fund is intended to attract private sector participation and speed up project development. In addition, $262.5 million in combined federal and provincial funding has been committed over 5 years to the Arctic Gateway Group. These investments aim to cut Canada's dependence on U.S. trade corridors and bolster northern supply chains.
Honourable Speaker, I present this budget at a moment of great economic opportunity. Canada is looking to the Port of Churchill as an answer to the questions we face in this new world order. It's an answer that's been here all along, a trade route known to the Dene, the Cree, and Inuit people for centuries. We are, after all, a maritime province with the Port of Churchill as our gateway to the Arctic and to the rest of the world.
Climate advocates, however, are uneasy. The Climate Action Team says measures like youth transit fares and electronic vehicle rebates are positive, but incremental. They argue the budget doesn't match Manitoba's own net zero commitments and risks locking the province into fossil fuel dependent growth through expanded trade infrastructure. The Progressive Conservatives argue property tax increases and delayed credits will outweigh savings for many families, dismissing the government's affordability claims.
These affordability measures are sprinkling pennies across families where families need real dollars.
Opposition leader Obi Khan had a strong message for the province.
To sum it up, I would say I'm shocked. I'm disappointed that there was nothing in this budget that actually laid out a plan to make Manitoba better.
Taken together, Manitoba's 2026 budget tells the story of a confident government, proud of its healthcare rebuilding efforts and economic stability, but is still facing pressure to act faster on housing and climate change. Whether future budgets can match the promise with bolder climate action and faster housing investment may define Manitoba's next chapter. You're listening to U Radio, where diverse voices connect. Stay tuned for more stories and insights that matter. With U Multicultural and the Local Journalism Initiative, I'm Ryan Funk.